Remember those restructurings we talked about just yesterday? Which were going on at Bioware, where they were just, carefully moving some people here and there, some minor adjustments, as they only really needed a core team to work on their next game. Well, we called bullshit then that these weren't gonna be no measly restructuring, but more meat cleaver to excessive fat, and, well, it turns out that we were, of course, correct, as always, as now it's starting to come out on Blue Sky, everyone's favorite premier child abuse social media platform, of course, that yes, a lot of people have been fired, not restructured, not moved from one department or another, but rather Cheetoed right out the door. And amusingly, can you guess what department was most heavily affected? That's right, the Dragon Age Veilguard Writers Department, whom Bioware has apparently taken a roaring chainsaw to, with quite a few people talking about being laid off. Ryan Cormier. So my time at Bioware has ended. It was a wild ride with some fantastic people, but it's time to look for new challenges, as he's been laid off one. Trick Weeks, I'm now looking for a new writing narrative position. It's been a privilege to work with so many amazing devs on my 20 years at Bioware. He's out too. Karen West Weekends, Bioware, bye-bye, and Jean Cheveri. For almost 14 years at Bioware, I'm devastated to learn today that myself and others must seek new opportunities. And I want to point out as well, these are some relatively senior people that are being let go here. People who have probably been working their way through the hierarchy for quite some time. These were the people who at one point in time participated in the once great titles as subalternates, and have now that they have risen to positions of prominence, demonstrated an inability to actually master the tasks of their predecessors. Whoopsie poopsie. And obviously a lot more as well. It looks like the entirety of Dragon Age the Veilguard's main credit writing team is now no longer working at BioWare. Justice, as I have absolutely adored watching the narrative of Veilguard collapse. When it first released and it had decent concurrent players, it was, ah, you silly willy chuds, see, this was a success. Then it stagnated, started falling off, not really growing to the point where everybody thought, and silence descended. Then it was followed with, it was pretty good actually, yeah, no, it did really well. It was super well received by everyone. Then the sales numbers came out, now it missed the mark by about 50%. Whoops, yet again. And now finally the narrative has become, well, they only restructured, they didn't fire anybody, and here we are. This has gotten all of the right people rather upset, like our individual here. This was taken from the Reset Era site, a lovely little thing which I'm half surprised still exists, honestly. So full-on MAGA effect to appease the shitheads, I'm guessing. Hey, we can but hope, can't we? More ass shots, more out of the edge, and as much high-end non-cartoony graphics as the hard YAR can manage. Only beautiful women with big tits and perfect asses. You're selling me. You are selling me very well on this, sir. Males can be ugly and fat, though, and only 2 genders for humans and non-binary aliens to slaughter. And no politics. Holy shit, this does indeed sound like a recipe for success in future BioWare titles. Hot chicks, only 2 genders, plenty of action, and no politics. Wow, release this and you might actually sell as much as the Korean gacha games you're competing with at this point. Although, males can be ugly and fat. I can't remember a whole lot of ugly and fat men in Mass Effect. Unless I've somehow managed to wipe those from my imagination, but sure, we can add in some of those too. After all, representation does matter, and fat asses like myself might require some on occasion, just so I can look at it and go, ah, there go I. I love this though. I love how these are presented as negatives. Hot women, only 2 genders, and lots of action. I don't... You know, I don't see how anything like this could possibly sell more than Dragon Age the Veilguard. Boy. Interesting times we are living in now. So, the restructuring, to return to that. Obviously, some restructuring probably happened due to the fact that it is actually relatively difficult to fire people. Now, where is Bioware located? I forgot, I've known this, but in many nations, most nations in fact, firing people who have been working at the company for an extended period of time requires some sort of extenuating circumstances or serious reason on behalf of the employer. Now, in some cases it could be really actually serious stuff, but when it comes to letting someone go for non-particularly serious reasons, just for, you know, economy reasons, you usually need a very good one, like, oh hey, we're in deep financial turmoil right now, that kind of stuff. And seeing as we're now seeing people being laid off with 20 years experience, that is a deep or very targeted cut. One out of the two. I also want to point out here though, remember, there have been quite a few people who have been mind broken by the last decade or two. People who used to once be relatively normal people, who once they got into political power began getting very, very vociferous around about the era of, you know, silence is violence, see something, say something. When the left began to radicalize itself, when it saw its grip on the institutions grow so fast that they figured they could get away with just about anything. And when you define yourself as being a priori in the right, and everyone who opposes you is an evil Nazi, well, it's very hard to not justify any and all horrific actions in the name of your preferred ascendant ideology. This turned a lot of people who had once been entirely normal and pleasant folks into complete, raging, power-mad dickwipes. And a lot of those were also in the games industry to begin with. So, somebody who had worked on previous games might simply have had that awakening and become someone with a reputation within the company for being that sort of person, and therefore let go for being that sort of person, a targeted one. As normally, you wouldn't let somebody with 20 years of experience go if they weren't an active impediment to future game releases. And we also know, of course, from the survey we covered, last week or so, that narrative designers have been let go en masse. Now, the narrative designers are the ones who take the plot and the scenarios, etc., and try to massage it into a more efficient form. They're the sweet baby inks of the games developer studios. They were the first ones to go because they are the most immediately expendable. And after that comes the writers, the people who make the stories that the narrative designers then shape into pleasingly progressive molds. And when you've got a game like Dragon Age the Veilguard, where the writing style, the characters, the design, and the overall violation of the world in question were the biggest, most obvious complaints, yeah, it makes sense you would target them directly for deletion. And I adore that also the fact that they try to hide it. We've talked about on multiple occasions that a lot of game companies might begin understanding where the problem lies, but not being able to actually deal with it immediately. Okay, we know this employee's the problem. We know the stories they write are not well received, but how can we fire them? They've got all sorts of legal protections, so we need a good reason. Are we really motivated to dig through their employment history to find something to fire them for, to concoct a reason, or even to make up an economic one, or even to get ourselves into a situation where it's no longer make-believe and so on? It can be rather hard to fire someone. So you might just decide, oh, well, we'll just let it go and see what happens, until, of course, it really doesn't go at all. And it becomes a matter of simple survival, where you have to get rid of them in one way or another. Amazon was doing this too, with very, very generous settlement packages. And if you are doing this, you might then expect an outcry by the people who are on their political side, because it will seem like a purge of very specific individuals. That's not good PR from the left then, as, you know, so we talked about it, studios are still afraid of the left. The only real news is that now they're equally afraid of the right, if indeed not even more so, in fact. So they're gonna try and fandangle it. No, we weren't firing people, we're restructuring. We're downscaling a little bit. Yeah, we don't need the entire crew to start the next Mass Effect game. No, of course not. No. We're just gonna move them around a little bit. Don't worry though, we're still doing great. That last game wasn't a complete and utter flop and failure or anything. No. Please, believe us. We've gotten pretty experienced at reading between the lines now, unfortunately, Bioware, so I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon, but hey, this is a very promising sign. I mentioned yesterday that I would prefer to see Bioware survive if they're capable of making good games, and simply just cutting out all of the people who have apparently been largely responsible for games like the Veilguard. That's your first and best step. And your second best step is finding where this guy lives and taking all of his advice, because he seems to understand what might actually save your company, Bioware. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.